trying to put some pieces together in the horrible case of 19-year-old Dacara Thompson. Greetings and welcome back. Excuse me, had to catch my breath there. Welcome back to my channel for another update. Again, happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to one and to all. Perhaps it is Sunday, depending upon where you are on the globe. Excuse me. Happy weekend. Happy weekend. So let me address everyone really quickly. Calais, how are you doing, Calais? My beautiful ideal. And I think that's it for right now. And whomever may come into the chat or may catch the replay. So, this is an ongoing investigation, of course, and as I mentioned earlier today, that I was going to go out and try to get some footage. So, I actually did that after I left to get a prescription filled. Having a rough time trying to kick this cold or whatever. So I was trying to not take antibiotics, but I had to buckle down and get them in my system just in case. So excuse me if I sound a little bit winded. And then I got caught out in the rain trying to get this footage. Thank you, my beautiful Calais. Happy Sunday to you as well. So, 19-year-old Dacara Thompson, unfortunately, as I've mentioned, was found unalive by 35-year-old Hugo Rene Hernandez Mendez of Guatemala, according to reports. And as I've mentioned, and a lot of people reporting on the story has been saying, excuse me, have been saying the same thing. A lot of things are not making sense. And the timelines, the timestamps. And as I mentioned before, I cannot say for sure. I just can't put my finger on it. I don't know if this is being done intentionally to throw people off, but something isn't right. And I hope some of the findings, and I'm not going to share everything, of course, for obvious reasons, and some of the things I'm not going to share just yet. I'm just going to sit back and wait to see what happens. Again, quickly, August 22nd, she left, told her father that she's going to get gas, and then the 23rd is when she was reported missing. Also on the 23rd, according to reports, roommates, a male roommate, stated that they heard him being Hernandez Mendez, and a woman who I'll have to assume from the evidence collected, it was the decedent, Dacara Thompson, engaging in a physical act. And then she was found, or a body was found, that was later identified as being her on August the 31st. Now, the medical examiner hasn't come out yet. At least it hasn't been presented to the public about what caused her passing. And in other words, what did this monster do? When or if they come out with the autopsy, I'm going to tell you right now, Personally, I'm not going to believe it because of this reason. There was an audit done where it was reported, and again, do your research, always do your research, that out of 36 cases that were given to the medical examiner in Baltimore, Maryland, men who passed away in custody or while in custody of law enforcement, their passing away was ruled as natural causes or other things, when in fact the audit showed that they should have been ruled as homicides. So knowing this, I would have a hard time believing their results because it's been too long. Secondly, he's been charged with not just first degree, but second degree unaliving of 19-year-old Dacara Thompson. Again, many questions loom as to why did she get in the vehicle. Some people have suggested that he may have threatened her, he may have had a weapon and forced her. According to surveillance footage, that does not look to be the case, but again, only, as I said, in the grand scheme of things, two people truly know what happened, and one is no longer here to present their side, unfortunately. So, again, my deepest, most heartfelt condolences to this beautiful young lady, but this is a cautionary tale just for me. Again, I mentioned before when I was younger, I would run out late at night. Things have changed. Okay, things have changed, and I'm telling you, this particular area, a lot of older people don't go out. So again, to me, that's a problem. And again, the timestamps, the time frames, they don't make sense. Now, there are questions if they knew each other prior. I would think, I would think that if they did, text messages would show, or I'm paying attention to my surroundings, text messages would show a communication, a pattern of communication. Again, if there were a relationship, either from her phone, his phone, or from records, because there is a case in Detroit, and that involves 42-year-old Jarvis Butts in the Nazia Harris case. Those text messages, and they were graphic. They were graphic. They were revealed and read in court. So the question is still up in the air as to if they knew each other prior to that fateful night. Next, after they tracked the vehicle to the home in Bowie, why did it take until the latter part of last week to, number one, apply for and have granted the search warrants, the residential search warrants, and then enough PC to um, charge him with first degree and second degree unaliving and then arrest him? That to me is a mighty long time to have passed for that to have happened. So people are singing the praises of these detectives, but again, I'm going to limit my comments, but I'm not going to give any kudos to them at all, because what I saw today, which I will show in a few, It appears that there are two county cruisers on that street. As I told you, I'm actually in this area, so it doesn't take much effort for me to get to those places to actually show you all what some people are reporting on from what they're hearing. But again, my boots are to the ground. I'm seeing it firsthand. So let me show this really quickly. Let me take this off the screen and have a couple of video clips. So bear with me. So behind me is the home of a 19-year-old Dacara Thompson was unalived by 35-year-old Hugo Rene Mendez. And as you can see, this is a pretty quiet street. Took a quick little walk. It's raining a little bit right now, but residential, and just a little ways down is a county police officer. So, again, and if you go down a little bit further, there's a school. There's also a school up closer. A lot of unanswered questions. I'm going to continue to try to retrace some steps. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the home right here. A 19-year-old Dacara Thompson, according to reports, allegedly lost her life. There's a black vehicle, and if you zoom in, that's the mattress that's still outside. Unbelievable. Now, I don't know if that is the same mattress. I could not see anything on it, and of course, I wasn't going to get close to it. I would assume that if it were, it would have been taken for evidence. Again, that could be. I don't know what it was. It was definitely a mattress, though. And again, that home is pretty large. It's actually, according to my findings, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. Again, quiet area. So if they did engage into a physical act, and I'm trying to be as respectful and handle this as gingerly as possible, I cannot imagine that street, as quiet as it is, nobody heard anything. Again, according to reports, one of the roommates stated that he heard them, and it sounded as if the woman was not into it, basically, not having a good time. Again, I'm trying to handle this as gently as possible. Again, what made that person believe that she was not enjoying herself? And why weren't law enforcement called then? The so-called cousin who spoke on camera, but she didn't want her identity revealed, said that she was very sorry, but she had no idea that any type of crime had been committed into the home. Again, there are a lot of questions, because as I mentioned, it's like hot potato. It's gone into the state's hands now. The county executive has stated during a press conference that any question should be directed to the Department of Justice. Well, as I mentioned before, we already have a case in reference to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who, again, another Maryland resident, not citizen, resident, who was deported by accident to El Salvador Sicat prison. However, because the government feels as though he is a MS-13 gang member and involved in trafficking, that he indeed should be deported. So he came back in June, and there were court proceedings backwards and forth. I attended actually one of them and was able to meet and speak briefly to one of his attorneys, because again, this is another high profile case that is going to set a precedent as it relates to immigration laws here in the United States. The latest is that they are considering strongly to deport Garcia again, this time to um, a small area in South Africa, formerly known as Swaziland. So, I'm not sure if that is going to happen. The attorneys for Kilmar Garcia are doing their best to try to fight that, but the government is standing strong on their position. So that there's a lot going on. The question is, how come Hugo Hernandez Mendez, who was arrested in April by the United States Park Police, they didn't know that he was an illegal alien working for a construction company, according to reports? Or is he? Okay, we have to think about that. Is he really an illegal alien? And is that why Thursday ICE put a detainer on him? I'm not saying he isn't, but all of these time frames don't make sense to me. And I just don't trust a lot of what's being said. So, one thing that I found, and I suspected, and I looked, a lot of you all see me post up um, videos where I'm just, I do too, ideal, I really do. But sometimes, well, what we pray for doesn't actually come the way that we would like for it to come. So some of you see me post up little short videos of me serving legal documents to people. That's pretty much, I can do that with my eyes closed. I've been doing it for so long. It's been challenging these last couple of years due to a lot of these um, immigration rules and statuses, and a lot of people that frankly are just here. They're not here legally, so it's really hard sometimes to get those done. Sometimes I have to just wait on people and look when they get off work, other things. But this right here is a little bit different. And this was actually pretty easy to do. And I knew once I um, had certain information, I would be able to do it. And I want people to pay attention to this, because this is a problem. And because Maryland is a sanctuary state, a lot of A lot of leniency is given, but hopefully this may open up the eyes of these county licensing and permitting offices to actually follow the rules that are on their website. Now, I could put a couple of people on blast because not too long ago I hinted at something and it's come to fruition. So, a lot of things that I've dealt with, I said, I'm just going to sit back and let the universe take care of certain people and certain things. And it's come back around where I I might have to sound the alarm and call out a few people. Not right just yet. I'm going to see what happens. But in my findings, and I want everyone to pay attention. Again, I'm in Maryland, and there's certain things that I actually know. Okay, I know for a fact. I'm not speculating. I'm not listening to what the news is saying. I'm actually here, so I know. So the first thing that came to my mind is when they said the cousin who spoke to the reporter, and you can Google and find that. I wondered if this was owner occupied or was this a rental? This is what I found. If you look at the highlighted area, it says residential no. What does that mean? More than likely, and I'm 99.9% sure that this is a rental property. And it gives the owner information, which I redacted, and it gave the owner's mailing address. I cross-referenced it, and it's the owner. Why is this important? Well, it's important for many reasons. Number one, I just mentioned that Maryland is a sanctuary state, and I've noticed an influx of vehicles that have come to Maryland bearing Texas tags. Again, where am I going with this? Are you going to land your plane? Absolutely. In the state of Maryland, in the state of Maryland, and there's a little snag because you have to see whether or not it's a town or a municipality, but still, in most of them, and in Bowie is considered a town. So the town of Bowie would be responsible for issuing a rental license. So in the state of Maryland, before, and this is the law, but it's broken all the time, before you rent your property, you are supposed to have a rental license. Now, I checked the county and there's not one on file, but as I mentioned, this is in the town of Bowie. So you have to check with the town of Bowie to see if this is licensed. Second, okay, for those of you out there that like I said, I know what I'm doing. I know. I just know. This was easy. In the state of Maryland, if your home is built before, okay, if your home is built before 1978 in the state of Maryland, you are supposed to have it registered with the Maryland Department of Environment because it is said that many homes, not all, but many homes prior to 1978 may have lead paint. Lead paint is extremely toxic to young children, pregnant women, and vulnerable adults with underlying conditions. This home was built in 1965, which means it should be registered with the Maryland Department of the Environment. Now, before you are even able to rent a home, according to the Maryland Department of Environment's homepage, and you can go and look for yourself. It needs to be registered, and if it's not registered, an inspection should be done to make sure that there's no chipping or flaking paint. If it passes the inspection, you'll get a certificate, and then, and only then, you should apply for your rental license with whatever county you are in the state of Maryland. Many counties will not allow you to rent your property unless you have a license. Prince George's County, however, and this is who I'm getting ready to call out, DPI, the Department of Inspection, okay, the Department of Permitting, Inspection, and Enforcement are horrible. They toss out rental licenses like frisbees. That said, there's a strong possibility, a very strong possibility, that the owner, who, by the way, is 62 years old and lives in another county. Yes, I found that out too. And as I said, I cross-referenced it. Of course, I can't release that information, but 62 years old, the probability of him having a rental license, very low. I would be surprised. Now, if certain ears hear this, they may get to him. Has he even been interviewed yet? Because this is his property. Okay, the residents there, who include, hold on really tight, this is redacted, but you see the last name, Hernandez. That's a family member. And yes, I cross-referenced that as well. Again, in the state of Maryland, you are to have a rental license before renting any property, before even collecting rent, before advertising a rental property. You are to be registered with the Maryland Department of Environment, the lead registry. If your home is built, okay, before 1978, you should not be advertising unless you have that certificate from MDE or the Maryland Department of Environment. You can have lead-free, full risk, or modified risk reduction. Again, you can Google that if you go to the Maryland Department of Environment's homepage. All of that information is there. Trust me, there are certain things, as I told you, many, many times, or told certain people many, many times, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. So, when it comes to other culpable parties, what information does the owner, or did the owner, have on the residents in this home? Or was he, like many Maryland property owners, just collecting money from people? And I'm telling you, if there is an audit of many homes on certain streets in Prince George's County, I will guarantee you the majority of them are not properly nor legally licensed. And technically, those are cases that should be or could be forwarded to the Maryland Attorney General. Because again, in order to rent, because you're receiving rent, you're receiving income, you need to have the proper licenses. Another thing people get away with, if there's no license on the books, and if you're getting paid rent under the table, there's no paper trail. So all of that rental income that you're supposed to pay tax on, it just goes pocketed. Again, you're not supposed to do that. These permitting offices know that as well, but because of being short staffed and some of them just don't give a damn, I'm just going to be honest with you. Again, they'll just give out licenses to get that out of the way. And I hope and pray that this is an eye opener for County Executive Aisha Braveboy and all of her staff. Start looking at some of these homes in Hyattsville, Langley Park, Bowie. Who would think Bowie? I just showed you one particular case because it's actually a high profile case in Maryland, but there's several. There are several. When you rent properties, especially if you have basements for rent, you have to make sure you have the proper size windows, the proper egress doors. That there's so many things involved because if something were to happen, you have to make sure that the residents are able to exit to safety. A lot of these homes aren't constructed that way. Again, that's another red flag. So that is a brief update of my findings and questions that I have as it relates to this very sad case. This property is not, and I repeat, is not owner occupied. And as I mentioned, I'm 99.9% sure that this is a rental. It does not appear that it is registered as a rental. Again, because it's in the town of Bowie, Bowie would have to confirm that. But it's definitely not registered in the Maryland Department of Environment's lead registry, which it should be. And that is the prerequisite. That should have been done first. And with that particular program, depending upon what type of certification that a home has, each time there's a turnover and a new tenant comes in, there should be an inspection to make sure that there's no chipping or flaking or anything like that. So that's a little bit more information, but something that, again, politicians need to start thinking about, because you have a lot of owners out there that are getting away with pocketing thousands and thousands and thousands. And not only that, let me just say this, you have some that have subsidy housing, meaning they are involved in these Section 8 programs where the government is paying a large portion of rent to these owners, but they don't do their checks and balances. So they're giving them a lot of money for which they're not entitled. Again, this is a major problem in Maryland, especially in Prince George's County, Maryland. You know, again, it's been raining most of the day. I can't afford to keep getting caught out in the rain, but the next live I'll do, I am going to take you around virtually Hyattsville and Langley Park so you can see the club that Hugo Rene Hernandez Mendez claims he was at the time of the heinous crime bestowed upon 19-year-old Dacara Thompson. And I'm going to show you that community. And then you can see for yourself exactly what it is that I'm speaking about. Again, salute to everyone that's been covering this. Get all the information that you can. But I've actually, I'm going to these places so you could see for yourself. And as I mentioned, I did a little bit more digging. Again, this is public. You just have to know where to go to get it. This home is not owner occupied. And as I said, it looks very much like it's a rental. Whether it's a legal rental or not, that remains to be said. Again, this is something I would hope the investigators, the detectives on this case, um, have looked into. They most certainly should have. And again, has the owner that lives in another county, 62 years old, if he's even aware that this happened on his property. Because I might be foreshadowing a little bit, but if a wrongful unaliving case were to be drafted, and it looks like it could be, I saw Ben Crump tweet, so we shall see, but fingers are going to be pointing at the owner. So, Maryland owners, it would behoove you to make sure if you are renting out your property and if you are knowingly renting out your property to undocumented individuals, save yourself some trouble because I just have a strong feeling that some audits, some spot checks might be done in the very near future because this case isn't going away anytime soon, even though the body has been found and charges have been levied. He still has a right to due process, even though many people have expressed their feelings and most passionately, and I understand why. But the law is the law, whether we like it or not. So, again, Maryland owners, and this goes for other states. I don't know your laws, I only know the laws and where I live. You better get yourselves together because I know, I know there's a bunch of you out there. You don't have licenses, and you definitely have. I believe that you definitely have some individuals that may not be legal. If I were a betting person, and I'm not, some of you might be getting some visits really soon because there are many Marylanders outraged, and for good reason. So, again, that's just a little quick update of some of the findings. Again, I went out to the home in Bowie, looked at the neighborhood. I went the other night. It was really dark, but I went when it was day, even though it was raining just a little bit, as you saw earlier. Quiet neighbor. One person that I spoke to briefly, he didn't even know that had happened. He was jogging. There was a father driving, or not driving, but riding his bike, and his little tyke was next to him on his little bike. Family oriented area, but I keep trying to explain to people sometimes even the quiet areas, some of the most heinous and evil things are done, and people aren't even aware of it. So it is my hope that people do not forget about 19-year-old Dacara Thompson. There have been a lot of people leaving some comments. Again, I understand and respect everyone's opinions, but at the same time, some people have been just really brutal with the comments. So I would just, again, people are going to do what they want to do. I would just hope and pray that they would show at least a modicum of compassion to the parents, because parenting isn't easy. Parents make mistakes. They're humans too. There's no textbook. Things change. People change. You can be the best, but it still doesn't make you kryptonite from something bad happening, as we've seen in this very sad and tragic story. So, everyone that's tuned in, thank you so much. And those who may catch the replay, thank you as well. Your thoughts and opinions on what do you think will happen when the medical examiner releases their findings from the autopsy? Again, the body was found August the 31st. Today is the 6th now. I know the results are in, but we'll just have to, as we're expected to do, wait patiently and pay attention. Pay attention to everything that's being said, everything that's being shown. And if it doesn't look or feel right, then I would suggest strongly that you continue to research and cross reference things. Maybe take a trip out and look for yourself. Look to see if there are any cameras now. Many places don't keep footage for that long. So, again, there are a lot of variables involved. And for you to know that, you have to actually be here to see it yourself. Because sometimes mainstream will only tell and show certain things. But if you actually have boots to the ground, you would know for yourself. So, with that, everyone, please, as I mentioned always, to be safe, be well, and be healthier. Until next video, bye bye for now.